Ancient Rome, from Republic to Empire. By the end of this video, you should be able to review why Rome was able to build a successful republic, explain how the Punic Wars affected the Roman government, describe the events that led Rome to transition from a republic to an empire, and identify the strengths and weaknesses of the Roman Empire. Why was the Roman Republic successful? Well, several reasons really. First of all, they educated citizens in Roman ways. They specifically did this by the work of writers like Livy, who wrote stories that taught Roman virtues, including emphasizing things like doing your duty, having courage, and being disciplined in the way that you went about doing things. The Republic was also led by a series of good diplomats who were able to balance freedom with firmness. They knew when to be kind to the people, and they knew when to be firm with the people. They excelled militarily, meaning that they had accomplished, persistent soldiers who were brilliant strategists. They could figure out and execute a plan. And they built fortified or militarily protected towns throughout Italy so that when problems arose, they could take a real practical approach to that, and they could move people around to the places that they needed to be in order to keep the people obedient and doing the things that needed to happen. The Punic Wars, which you read about in your homework assignment, were a series of wars where Rome fought against Carthage. Punic makes reference to the idea that the people of Carthage were perhaps descendants of Phoenicians, and Punic was a Roman way of describing the Phoenicians. The first war began when Rome supported the Greek city-states in Sicily who were fighting against Carthage. The second war revolved more around Carthage and Rome competing for resources in Spain, as well as control of land and territory in Europe and in Italy itself. And the third war really originated with the idea that Rome thought they could solve some of their problems with jobs and land and availability of those by fighting a war against Carthage. Now, despite the fact that Rome defeated and destroyed Carthage, the wars themselves didn't really solve the problems that Rome had. So after the Punic Wars, the situation is this. The power of the Senate is increasing, and the Senate was controlled by a small group of wealthy landowners. That's the aristocracy. And at the same time that this small group of people is getting more and more powerful, you've got a large number of people who don't own any land at all. Therefore, they're very poor. They don't have any way to earn a living or grow food, and neither they themselves nor the government is really able to take care of them. Now, a possible solution emerged. The idea was suggested that you would take some of the land away from the aristocracy and you'd redistribute it to the poor. But that doesn't work out, and the leaders of the reform movement, it was a set of brothers who were named Gaius and Tiberius Gracchus, were actually in this period of time. You saw a shift away from elected representatives, even the wealthy, powerful people of the Senate, and more emphasis placed on military power. There was a series of rulers who used military power as a way to gain support. They promised the poor people that if they joined the military and supported them personally, that they would get land in exchange for that. And really all this yields is a period of civil war. Once this period of civil war ended, the opposition reformers, those people who supported land reform and the redistribution of land to the poor, were basically executed, and the power of the Senate was restored. The popular assemblies were eliminated, and that's really the end of representative or republican government in Rome. After this time period, there emerges a group of three who controls power in the government. They're known as the First Triumvirate. And it consisted of two military leaders, Pompey and Julius Caesar. and then one of the wealthiest men in the Roman Empire, Crassus. When he's killed in battle, the Senate supports Pompey as becoming the sole ruler of Rome, but Julius Caesar refused to surrender his power. In fact, he marched on Rome and fought for control of the city and the surrounding countryside, and puts himself in power almost as dictator in 45 BC. Now, he was popular because he put into place land reform to help the people who'd been struggling to survive. He increased the number of people in the Senate, and he made sure that the people who served in the Senate were loyal to him. But despite all that, his political enemies assassinated him in 44 BC. After another period of fighting and struggle, the second triumvirate emerges. It's made up of men named Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus. It's stronger than the first triumvirate. It actually lasts for a period of almost 10 years. It had greater power and legal standing. It was really officially recognized as the government of Rome in a way that the first triumvirate never had been. But it also eventually dissolves into civil war, with Octavian and Mark Antony's forces competing with each other. And Octavian emerges from that as the sole leader and officially becomes the first emperor of Rome. This initiates the period called the Age of Augustus, or the period of time in which Rome is ruled by emperors, and Octavian proves to be a very popular leader. So as we transition from BC to AD, Rome has become an empire. It's a large territory ruled by a single person. That person has a powerful military to support and protect his interests, and he's able to choose a successor when it's time for him to pass out of power. When he's about to die, he names the person who's going to come next. The emperors of the 1st century AD, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, are infamous in terms of the corrupt and cruel ways in which they governed. They often had their opponents executed, and they were very dictatorial in the way that they wielded their power. They weren't at all interested in what was good for the people. They were interested in what would allow them to continue to serve. The emperors of the 2nd century, however, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius, were much more kind and compassionate and interested in the welfare of the people. And they preside over a period of time that's called the Pax Romana. It's a period of peace and prosperity for Rome and its people. There's an expansion of territory, and a number of public works building projects are undertaken in this time period. So what's the impact of the Roman Empire? Well, in a positive way, rights and privileges of citizenship were granted to all free people. It really meant something to be a Roman citizen and to have the protection of the Roman government behind you. Numerous cities were built throughout the empire that spread the Roman culture, language, and laws. And there were many people who were employed by the Roman government, and that served to increase their loyalty to that government. The Romans developed an extensive trade network and were able to do business with people as far away as the Chinese dynasties of this time period. But despite all this growth, farming remains the essential activity in the Roman Empire, and there are still people who don't have land and aren't able to take care of themselves and depend on the government for the basic necessities of life, such that a tension remains between the rich and the poor. So that's the story of Rome's transition from republic to empire. If you need to review or rewatch any of this, feel free to run it back. Thanks for listening.